please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Subdates 230104.2. The first Halls of Injustice of 2023 needs to be a banger, but as Danny Masterson's trial ended with a mistrial, you get my 7th choice, because the other 5 were just too dark for YouTube. Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. This is officially the 150th that we have done. I'm very excited by this, and I thought, because I don't want to get demonetized just yet, we're going to go with a topic that isn't so controversial, and for it, I can preface it with the following. Many of us from time to time find money on the ground. It's a great feeling, especially when it's a note, a high-end note. Highest I found in the last 12 months was a £20 note. At no point did I think to declare it, no, I went and bought swag with it. Why? Because finders keepers, losers weepers, of course. The rules are, is it 3 or 5 seconds? Not that it matters, I gave ample opportunity for whoever it could have been to pick it up and they didn't. Their loss. Some people like to take this further. They like to go on treasure hunts, with the most common applicator for such an adventure being, no, not Bilbo Baggins, a metal detector. Unlike Bilbo, it's unlikely any of us in our lifetime will ever stumble across the great dwarvish riches of Erebor. However, if we do find something, we are elated. Some places have rules for this, depending on how much you find. This is not a hobby I partake in myself, but today, the 2 inmates I'd like to welcome to the ISO Cubes, inmates number 150.1 and inmate 150.2, well, they do like a treasure hunt. Their names are George Powell and Layton Davies, and their treasure hunting ended up getting them locked up for it. No, they didn't rob a bank. Although if they'd stumbled across a bank claiming they'd found it, dug into it, taken everything out of it, and then walked away, I'd be very impressed. I'd be more impressed if they managed to find a way to get rid of the tie bags without being, well, busted. And as a suitable way of prefacing what they've done, if you're going to go metal detecting, you need to abide the laws of the land. And more notably, make sure that any land you are metal detecting or treasure hunting on isn't owned by another person. If it is, there is a high chance anything you obtain will not be, well, yours. It will in fact go to the person you stole it from. As there isn't much in the way of information as to who George Powell and Layton Davies are, I am going to skip straight to the crime that they committed, because this one stretches all the way back to 2019 with some consequences more recent, which tickled me to no end, I will admit. Oh, and if in your lifetime you've done any treasure hunting or found money on the ground, do tell me what you did with it. I am very much curious to know how many people like myself are dicks and would just keep it cause money, and how many people are goody two-shoes that need banning from this channel. On the 21st of November 2019, The Guardian published an article covering the original crime itself. 2 metal detectorists who unearthed an astonishing hoard of gold, jewelry, silver ingots and coins buried more than 1,000 years ago by a Viking warrior in Hertfordshire, face prison after being found guilty of theft. There is some conflicting information with this particular hoard of treasure, and that is the value of it. This article indicates it's worth 3 million. Others indicate up to 12 million. This conflicting information does not help us, but I'm inclined, based on the update, which is of course a spoiler, to go with the lower estimate of £3 million. George Powell and Layton Davies should legally have declared the fine, estimated to be worth more than 3 million, but instead, because they're morons, they began to show it to dealers and tried to sell parts of it off. A small part of me is glad they didn't adopt the idea of GTA 5 and melt it all down and then sell off the new ingots of gold, silver, and other such stuff. Among the jewelry, which dated from the 5th to 9th centuries, was a ring, an arm bracelet, and a small crystal ball held by strips of gold that would have been worn as a pendant. The jewelry and 1 ingot have been recovered, but the vast majority of the 300 Anglo-Saxon coins that police believe were found remain unaccounted for, to the frustration and anger of historians, who see the hoard as hugely important. Why, reparations to the person it might have belonged to or had been taken from originally when the Vikings pillaged and plundered these wonderful lands? I don't care. Now, the swerve that really makes this interesting is the land they had discovered this on is owned by Lord Corley near Leominster in June of 2015. That's when they did this. 4 years later is when they finally got absolutely battered for it. And then add another 3 because an update. What Lord Corley didn't know is that he could, because it was found on his property, be in line for a reward, being quoted as saying, "I suppose it's good news for me. I could possibly be in for a reward. It would be nice." Could he sound any more like he doesn't care or he has too much money already? And I would, for the sake of confirming that, bother to look up his net worth and show it to you on the screen. But there are a lot of Corleys. Some are in America with net worths over 500 million. Lord Corley also confirmed that the pair had not been given permission to detect on his land, being quoted as saying, "What they did was illegal. They shouldn't have done it," confirming he also believes that the coins would not be recovered. Experts have pointed out, had they handed all of this in, they would have been handsomely rewarded. Instead, because they were found guilty of a theft, they were, in line for prison. So what George Powell and Layton Davies did was they went to a coin dealer in Cardiff called Paul Wells, with 5 of the coins being found at the home of Paul Wells. Simon Wicks, an antiques dealer and metal detectorist from East Sussex, was asked to help them then sell further coins, which was confirmed by the prosecution because they had 2 extremely rare 2 emperors depicting King Alfred and the Great of Wessex, and some name of Mercia, I can't pronounce that name. Wicks took them to a dealership in Mayfair. An expert gasped when he saw the coins and valued each of the 2 emperors at £100,000. This is where the rumours started. The gold and 1 ingot was handed over, but the police have recovered only 30 of the 300 coins. Gareth Williams, a specialist at the British Museum on the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings, was quoted as saying, "It's not just a theft of the items. If we don't recover everything, it's a theft of our history. The stupidity is that our treasure system is the most generous in the world in terms of providing rewards for those who abide by the law. These men would have been rich by now if they had done things by the book. They have chosen not to, and in doing so have destroyed an important part of our history. It's difficult to feel any sympathy for them. They have been greedy and selfish, and the nation is the loser." George Powell, Layton Davies were not the only peoples on trial. There were others. 3 others, in fact, all of whom were remanded into custody because Judge Nicholas Cartwright believed that if they were released on bail before being sentenced, they could try and hide the missing coins. So for the sake of names and transparency, George Powell, Layton Davies were found guilty of stealing jewellery, ingots and coins, along with Simon Wicks. They were convicted of conspiracy to convert criminal property. The 3, plus Paul Wells, were found guilty of conspiracy to conceal criminal property. They weren't so greedy, this would have ended a bit better for them, don't you think? Taking a hobby, being shown an opportunity of a lifetime, and deciding, YOLO swag fam, but these are worth a lot more if I sell them than if they're simply given to those that it belongs to. Lord Corley is who they belong to technically, because it's his land. But the historical museums around this country would have paid vast sums of money to get their hands on it. How greedy do you want to be, bitch? I'm going to warm up one of these cells. Inmates numbers 150.1 and 150.2, George Powell and Layton Davies, found guilty of theft, conspiracy to conceal criminal property and conspiracy to convert criminal property in November of 2019, were jailed for more than 18 years. Oh boy, that's together by the way, not each. That is a lengthy sentence for those respective crimes. And just in case anyone wants to know why it is that you have to, under law, declare such findings, it is the Treasure Act of 1996 that makes it so that you have to declare this. We in this nation have such a rich history that when it comes to somebody else holding on to it, we want to make sure you legally have a claim to it. In the case of George Powell, he was sentenced to 6.5 years. Layton Davies, 5 years. Now that doesn't add up to 18, but there's more to it than that, which adds on to the sentence, which is the additional fallout to what has happened. You see, until the 21st of March 2023, they have to pay reparations. This is my favourite part. Each of them have to pay just over £600,000, and for the exact numbers, it's £601,250 for one of them and £603,180. How is this interesting, you ask? because they only got that recently. They were only ordered to recently. How the police managed to get the reparations is courtesy of a confiscation order, which was confirmed after this recent revelation by Superintendent Ed Extra D. Williams, who said, "I am delighted with today's result, which brings closure to an investigation which we have been working on for 7 years. The confiscation order, coupled with the sentences Powell and Davies received, send a strong and clear message that we take this sort of crime very seriously and will take action. It is a criminal offence to not declare fines of treasure to the local coroner's office. I'd also like to blah 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 thank me." I didn't know you had to take it to a coroner's office. That's interesting. Do they have to perform an autopsy on a coin? Now, if they do not pay the £600,000+ bill within the 3 months, they get an additional 5 years and 4 months of jail time on top of their existing sentence. And the remaining years that made it 18 included the other 2 Paul Wells and Simon Wicks, all of whom got royally butt-fecked because they didn't declare or do the right thing. Where we know at least one of them is royally screwed is that George Powell has, claimed that he gambled the cash away. In an interview, Powell admitted he wanted to become rich and to get the payout, only for his greed to end in his downfall. He also claimed that he only found 51 coins and sold the unrecovered 20 for just £10,000, admitting that his gambling is a bit of a naughty habit. Layton Davies knew nothing about him selling any of the coins, confirmed by George Powell. And when he was asked why he has decided to be so open now, he simply said, "Because he's lost everything. I've got nothing to lose. I've lost my partner. I'm in prison. Your Honor and the public deserve the right to know the truth. I think prison has made the best of me. It's made me realize what I've done wrong." He also, in this hearing, admitted that Layton Davies didn't have as much to do with it as he did, and that in reality, with what they sold, they barely got anything from Simon Wicks, who was the dealer that bought the coins anyway. I can't wait to see you two back here in a few months' time to serve another 5 years and 4 months. I'll turn the air conditioning off and, they're hot boxes anyway, you won't need any heating. With the crime, with what we have discussed today, I'd love to know what you all think. Please do let me know in the comments down below.